Hey friends, Andrea here, and I'm just going to make a quick video to show you how I create these metal flowers from either a soda can or a beer can or whatever you have on hand. So these are just some flowers that I created using recycled cans, and got a couple other ones here that are just the single instead of the multiple layers. And I use this die cutting machine, and I use a can that I've already cut up to cut out the flowers using one of these dies. This one is flower layers. I have a couple of them. I have this other one here that is the Tim Holtz Tattered Florals die, and then I have my two little plates here that I use for cutting. And what I do is I'm not going to show how I get the cans cut out like this, because there's a lot of other videos out there, and maybe I'll link one. But you have to be really careful when you're doing this. If you are not careful, you can cut yourself because it's pretty sharp. But if this was a can, all I'm doing is finding where it starts to like curve into the top, and I put a just an X-Acto knife. I kind of pierce a hole and then start cutting it, and then once I get it, part of the way cut, I can get a pair of scissors in there and I can cut it all the way around. And then I just do that on both sides, and I'm left with a rectangle, and then I just kind of cut up the sides so I can get it into a flat sheet. So ideally you want to, have a clean can. But then the way I colored these after I cut them out was I used a Sharpie. And then to stick multiple layers together like this, I just used a brad through the center of one of those little flower centers. And if we don't have flowers that have a hole already, if that's not part of your die, then you just need to poke a hole through your flower and insert the brad, and then just fold it over on the back side. Now I do have another project in mind where I'm going to use these flowers to decorate a tin can, and you could either decorate the tin can as part of just for putting a plant into, use it for growing a plant outside, and it gets a nice little patina from rust over time, or you could paint it. You could use Sharpie or alcohol ink to color the metal in the can if you wanted to do it that way. But I like to use the cans, recycled cans, to make what I call junk drawer wind chimes. And that's basically like old keys, little buttons and beads that you don't really care about, just like little pieces of glass or shells that I can drill holes into. It's like any little found objects, and coins or things, little charms that I've not found a use for. Lots of little metal junk drawer items, mostly. And then I kind of string them all together, and I hang them from the can, from a tin can from whatever I made for dinner, like beans or tuna or something like that. So I have several different cans that I've been saving, and I put aside to show you how to do that. But for today, I'm just going to show the first step, which is making these metal flowers. And these actually are not sharp. I mean, if you weren't careful, if you tried to slice yourself with them, it would hurt you, but it's not. I can touch it because of the way that the die has cut it out, the metal, it kind of bends it a little bit. You can see it's kind of like embossed there, so that kind of helps remove some of the sharpness. But before you start doing that, it is really sharp. Before you even die cut it, it is really sharp, so you should be careful. If you're a kid, if you're under 18, get a parent to help you, because this could injure your hands, or you could cut yourself. So I'm just going to open this up. This is a cuddle bug. I've had this for a super long time. It's a little dirty. And you can find these, I think, maybe like $40, and you can just get a coupon from Michael's or Hobby Lobby or wherever you shop, Joann's. Anywhere that you shop for crafts would have something like this. And this just happens to be the one that I have. It's a die cutting machine, but this happens to be the brand. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my die. In this case, I want to use the Tattered florals, and then that's going to give me both this larger flower, which is right here on the die, this like more whispery, why am I saying whispery? Wispy flower here, this one that has like lots of little petals or skinny petals. And then it's also going to give me this flower, which I don't have an example of that's already done, but it looks like that. And then I'm also going to get a smaller little guy like this. So when I put this down, I'm going to put it down in a way that it'll make sure I'm not losing any of this, like it's not going to cut off the edge and then I'm going to lose part of my petal. And then I'm going to sandwich it between these two plastic plates, and my plastic plates are pretty beat up. I think these are just like acrylic or something, I'm not sure, but I'm going to put one down in the bottom, and then I'm going to put my die cutting plate, and then I'm going to put my metal. And it doesn't really matter if you do it which direction you do it, but I've found that when I am die cutting, the way that the die is made is there's a little plate inside of here where that outline is. There's a little blade that's embedded in this foam, and when that blade pushes this metal, it actually pushes the edges, and so the edges are going to be kind of embossed like that. So in my experience, I like to have that on the back side, and that puts the design of the beer can on the back side. If you want to keep the design, like you're using a red Coke can or something like that, not sponsored by Coke, I'm just mentioning them. If you're using a red Coke can and it's already part of the can colored, then you could just, bring that color over into your flower if you want. So you could choose which side you want to use. I want to keep the metal, the aluminum color, the silver color, and that's going to be my canvas for coloring on it with a Sharpie. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my second plate down on here, and I'm kind of like trying to make sure I keep it pressed down so it doesn't lose my the sandwich that I'm making here. And then I'm just going to push it through. Oops, I have some junk mail that got sucked over here. So I'm going to there's a little handle that I'm turning, and I'm going to push it through. And I'll show you what it looks like on the other side. So this is what it looks like when it comes out the other side. It's kind of hard to film this, but when I take this sandwich off, I have the flower petals. This one didn't quite get pierced all the way through, but I can just pull it out. And this one, same. I lost the little guy over here, and I still have a little bit left so I could probably run it through another time and get another big flower maybe, but I'm gonna set that aside for now. So now I have my kind of different size petals, and I could decide how I want to arrange it. If I wanted to, I could just do this one and like this little guy, or I could just do this little one and the big one. You could bend them, so I could like pop that one out and do something like that. That's kind of fun to just add a little bit of shape to the petals, because they do have a little bit of a bend in them already from the can being, bent. You could flatten it out if you wanted to, but I kind of think that makes it look a little more organic and gives it some volume when you're putting it on your tin can, if you're going to attach it to a tin can. So I'm going to put this stuff aside, and then I'm going to get out my Sharpies so I can color them in and show you how I do that. Okay, so I'm back, and I have my Sharpies here. This is the set I have, is a set of fine points. And then I also have, for accents, if I wanted to, I have these little silver metallic, gold metallic, and bronze metallic. Those might be nice to incorporate. But for now, I'm just going to choose some colors for these. And I also need to figure out how I want to arrange them. And I think that I want to go ahead and just take this this smaller one and this bigger one and stack those together, and then this I don't know, daisy shaped one and stack it together with this one, and then like kind of pop out the petals just like I did with this flower. So I'm gonna do that, and then as far as colors go, I think I want to do one pink and one red. And I think I'm gonna do this one red, this one pink, and then I don't know, I think maybe the centers can be like yellow. So I'm just gonna pull out those colors. I think maybe this magenta might be nice actually, but I'm gonna bring in this other color here, and I'll put the rest of these away, out of the way now. So I'm just gonna do one on camera, and then I'll come back and show you the rest. But I'm just getting out my Sharpie. You could use alcohol inks if you wanted to as well, but I find that this is a little bit less messy for me, and I already have it on hand. And a lot of more people have Sharpies on hand than alcohol inks. And if you don't have a die cutting machine like the way I have to cut these out, you can use a pair of scissors to cut out a petal shape, and then just stack them together with a brad in the center to hold them together. And then you could even add glue a little gem on the top of the brad if you don't have brads that have a gem already built into them. So you don't have to have the die cutting machine to make this work. You can definitely DIY with a pair of scissors. So I'm just going to finish coloring this in. As you can see, it takes the color pretty well. I'm not trying to go in any specific direction. I'm just trying to like color it all in and get it relatively even coating all over the flower. And my mat that I'm coloring on is kind of beat up at this point. Like, I've damaged it pretty well. So I'm not too worried about getting some ink on it. But if you are working on a surface that you don't want to get Sharpie on and permanently stain your work surface, then work on like a piece of newspaper or a piece of cardboard that you picked out of the trash or something like that, so you don't have to get a stain on your nice table, your nice surface, your work surface. But at this point, I've already put an iron across it because I was kind of silly. I made a mistake one day, and there's other little divots and things on it at this point, so I'm not too worried about it getting a paint mark or a Sharpie mark here or there. Just adds character, I guess. So I'm gonna go ahead and just meet you back here when I have this colored in. So I'm back. I colored in my flowers. Here's the yellow and the red, and then I did this pink, this kind of like hot pink, and then I took this I don't know what color this is. It's kind of like a magenta or like a purpley color, and I added it just to the end here, if you can see that. So just to give it a little bit more interest. So I just wanted to show you how I did that. So I've already colored in all of the petals, and then I'm just gonna go to the outer edge of the petal and draw a line, a straight line down, and then just keep drawing little straight lines down, but like space them out a little bit. They're not like right up next to each other. They don't have to be anyway. And then the last one on the end, I just kind of pull it down a little bit further so it's like almost connecting with that other one. And I feel like that just gives a little bit more interest, since it's not just like a plain, flower. And then I can add a few other extra little lines in there if I wanted to just kind of fill it in a little bit more, but I think that looks just a little less plain. If you don't have the interest or the time in doing that extra step, you don't have to, but I just thought it looks a little nice, and I'll show it to you guys. It just makes it look a little different, and I don't know, it's not like, it's just an aesthetic choice, you know what I mean? So I just like to experiment and see what other things I can do to make my little flowers have some more visual interest. And I don't need them to be perfect, because flowers are imperfect, organic, and fascinating already as they are. And so this is a handmade product. I want it to look a little bit handmade and organic. So I'm going to put that back. And now I have some brads that I'm gonna attach to these, and I have to poke a hole in the center. So to poke a hole in the center, I could do two things. I could either use one of these. It's a, now I forget the name of it, but it's an awl, and I would just poke a hole through here. I would need to put something like a piece of foam or something behind that and poke through. Or you could use a hole punch. And here's just a hole punch that I have. And I have a slightly smaller little hole punch that would poke a little bit tinier of a hole. So I'm going to just take a look at my brads here and see. I've got a couple of brads that have like gems in the center. So that's kind of cute. This one's kind of like a pale pink. And if you didn't have a brad that has a gem in the center, you could use just a plain brad and then color it with a Sharpie on the top. So I think I'm going to do that instead of using my ones that are already got that center in them. If you had some gems like in the center and you didn't like that color, you could color that in. So maybe I'll do that one and do the other one colored in. So for this one, since it's already kind of pale pink and I want it to be a little bit more closer to that yellow color, I'm going to go ahead and just color it in with my Sharpie, with my yellow Sharpie. And it'll, since it's already kind of pink, it'll give it a like slightly more orangey tone. And for that matter, I'm just going to color the outside of the brad with this Sharpie too. Like the little outer rim. So that's done. And then for this one, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to color it yellow. And you can see on this one that I did add like some little brown dots on it to give it a little bit more of like a natural, I don't know, just interest. So you could do that if you wanted to, just to get a little fancier. So the brad itself doesn't have a super thick base to put through your flower here, but you do want to give it a little bit of room. If you don't have one of these type of hole punches, you can just use a safety pin, and punch it through like that. So I'm actually just going to poke it through. This is a craft mat, so if I poke it through, it won't really harm the mat. I'm just going to find the center where I think is the center and push it through. And it will bend a little bit, and it's okay. And I'm going to just kind of wiggle it around in that hole to get it nice and good. And then I'm going to find the center on this red flower. I think that's the center. And I never want to put my fingers behind there and poke it, because then I could poke my fingers. Ask me how I know. So I'm going to go ahead and put those together. I think I'm going to use this totally yellow one and just poke it through. And you might have to kind of like wiggle it to get it through, and it will bend a little bit, just a hair. Just kind of like pushing it open and creating that entryway for it to go through. And I'm just going to bend it a little bit and give it some shape, natural shape. And I need to put it through this other one. And I do want to just kind of arrange this a slightly different way. So I'm just going to rotate it. And I think I like that. I think I'm going to just leave it like this. So I'm just going to have to, on the back side, I'm just going to flatten that out. And I think I'm going to just pull these leaves or these petals back a little bit, just ever so slightly, and then pull these ones to the front a little bit more. And I don't need it that bent, but just a little bit, just so it has some interest. And there, it's done. So that is one down. And I'm going to do the second one. And it is getting a little bent, so if you didn't want it to get bent like that, you could use a hole punch instead. Oops, didn't quite go through. I thought it was all the way through. Okay, so I'm gonna do my brad here. Oh, that looks cute with the little gem in the center. That's cute, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and flatten it. And just like the other one, I'm gonna kind of play with it a little bit. Bend these little petals up a little. Doesn't have to be a ton, just enough to give it some texture. So those two are done. I think if I wanted to go back and add some more interest to this, I could get like an orange, you know, and do the same thing as I did on these petals to give it some more texture. Another thing I could do if I wanted to make a bunch of petals that are kind of like succulent shaped, I could layer them together and make a little succulent colored one. So just color them all green and then do different layers. And if I did the edges like this on the succulent colored on the green one, and they're kind of pointier, that might look a little bit like an echeveria plant. So that's another cute thing that you can do with these. And then once you're done with them, you can either decorate the outside of your house with them, you know, around your garden. You could stick it to a little dowel and then like just you know, tie it around, put a little piece of string around it and tie it around a dowel and put it in your yard as a little decorative item. You could put it on the top of a gift that you're giving to someone. You could do a lot of different things with these, but in my case, I'm going to use them to decorate my tin cans, and I'll show you that in a future video. When I make that video, I will definitely link it here so you can find it, but just wanted to show you a cool way to upcycle your cans. And I'm going to go ahead and show you just one more way of doing this without the die, and I'm just going to use my scissors. Okay, so I have my little sheet. This is the leftovers of what I had, and I'm just going to be cutting it into strips, and they're not even. I'm just going to cut them decently, and then I'm going to go ahead and round off the edges here, just enough that it looks like a petal here. And if you wanted it to look pretty natural, you could go in and like do some research and see what shapes petals look like for real for real petals. But I'm just going to go ahead and kind of round off each one. Well, that's not very rounded, so let me try to do that. I'm not going to color these ones in just because I want to show you how I would make this without doing all the die cutting. So if you don't have a die cutting machine, you can just use a pair of sharp scissors and accomplish the same thing or something similar. Oh, that's not quite rounded here. So I'm going to just go ahead and do the rest of these and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've done all my little strips. I've kind of curved off the edges there so they're a little less sharp. You still want to be careful. I'm just going to flatten them out a little bit. And then I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to find the center, or what approximate center here. Put my little hole in there. I'm going to do that to all of them. Seems like it. Okay, so for the sake of this video, let's just pretend like these are all colored in. Okay, and I'm just going to be pretending like I'm assembling this like I normally would. If I had these all colored in already, I poked all the holes in the centers, and now I'm going to just push my brad in, and in this case I'm using a brad with a gem. You'll want to be careful that you cut off all the sharp edges. On this one I didn't quite get the sharp edge off, and it caught me. It didn't cut me, but it did catch my fingers. So I'm just going to cut that off. Because it's still sharp, don't get me wrong, but I don't want it to be like snagging me. So I'm just going to keep pushing this through the center of all my flower petals, and I'm layering them in a way that makes them kind of overlap. And then I kind of put the longest ones in the back here so that they would be sticking out. It's kind of the ones that were a little less long, the shorter ones, I just kind of went and put in the front. So now I have a bunch of little petals like that. If you didn't want to poke through the center, you could just kind of punch through kind of towards the end here. You just have to be careful not to get too close to the end, and I felt like this would be a little bit easier to navigate. But then, assuming everything is done, you've colored it all in, you go ahead and flatten your brad on that, and then you have a bunch of handmade flowers with the different petals, and you can go ahead and move them and arrange them however you want to get the petal look you want. And you can make as many different little petals. You could do skinny ones. Just need to make sure that there's enough room in there for the brad. You don't want to get too skinny because then the brad won't, it'll poke through and it'll potentially rip your metal. So that's another way that you can make this with just scissors. And here's all the little pieces here. These are sharp, so I usually just put these tie them into like a little plastic bag and throw them away, if I'm getting rid of stuff. But that's the finished one of that. So here's all the rest of them that I've already made, and then some other ones that I made in the past. And so, just so you can kind of see the difference. I really like the way that the ones that are die cut come out, because I feel like it looks a little more professional, but this is totally fine too if you're going to just do garden art, or if you wanted to, you could trace out like a little template out of a piece of cardstock and then trace around it to get a nicer look than what I just came up with here. But it's still doable, it's still going to be cute. It's not too sharp on the edges, so make sure that you're cutting those to remove any sharp edges, and definitely be careful if you're going to be putting this on a gift or something like that. Make sure you warn the person who you're giving it to be careful of it, because they might catch their hand on it or something. But I really like using this for like outdoor decor, just to add a little pop of color to a little an area where you just have some greenery, some shrubs, or as a little decoration near your front door, something like that. And just, it's like a little nice little pop of color during the winter blahs. So anyway, I hope that has given you some ideas and some ways that you can upcycle your cans. And I actually have a whole bunch of cans that I've kind of pre-cut, and I just keep them in this old ice cream container, and they're ready to go whenever I'm ready to start cutting them down. And then I usually take all the little cut pieces and put them back in the can in the center, so that I don't have a bunch of little pieces falling on the floor and stepping on them and doing damage to my feet. So if you're smart, you would do that too. Anyway, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching my video. And if you do like this content and you'd like to see more of it, please like and subscribe. That just lets me know that people are enjoying my content, and it helps other people find my videos as well, so that way they can enjoy it. And if you can share it with your friends and let them know about it, that would be great. If you have anything that you want to see me try or experiment with, I'm really open to lots of new things. I have lots of supplies and hobbies. I like upcycled crafting, so if you want to see me DIY something like that, shoot me a message, leave me a comment. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye.